Chapter 3, Mrs. Roopy is Loopy. I didn't think much about the President's Day Challenge until dismissal at 3 o'clock. The gang and me were about to head home when we saw Andrea and Emily sitting on the front steps of the school. I figured they liked school so much they didn't want to go home. "What are you doing here?" asked Ryan. "Who will eat anything, even stuff that isn't food?" "Emily and I are going to the media center after school today," Andrea said. "That's right," said Emily, who always agrees with everything Andrea says. "The media center? Ugh, that's a horrible place that used to be called the library, but they changed the name because kids don't want to go to the library. You want to know why? Because it has lots of books in it. Books are boring." "Why are you going to the media center?" asked Alexia, who rides a skateboard all the time. "Mrs. Roopy said she'd help us learn about the presidents," Andrea told us. "The kids who know the most will get to be in the President's Day Challenge." "So we can win the trip to Disneyland," added Emily. "Wait, only a few kids get to go to Disneyland? I thought all of us would get to go. It wasn't fair." Well, I wasn't going to let Andrea win the trip to Disneyland. When she got up to go to the media center, so did I. And so did Ryan, Neil, Michael, and Alexia. It's not like we had anything better to do after school anyway. When we got to the media center, our media specialist, Mrs. Roopy, was waiting for us. But she didn't look like Mrs. Roopy. She's always dressing up like other people. One time she was little Bo Peep. That was weird. Mrs. Roopy is Loopy. This time she was dressed up like some old guy with dark hair and a dark suit and tie. "Who are you today, Mrs. Roopy?" asked Andrea. "Roopy?" said Mrs. Roopy in a low voice. "Never heard of her. My name is Ronald Reagan. I was the 40th president. Before I was the president, I was a movie star. In one movie, my co-star was a chimpanzee. The movie was called Bedtime for Bonzo." "So, if they ask us which president acted in a movie with a chimp, we'll remember Ronald Reagan," said Andrea. There's a picture. "See," said Mrs. Roopy, "you learned something about a president already." Ronald Roopy Reagan showed us a bunch of books about the presidents. Then he said we could use the computers to look up more stuff. Andrea and Emily rushed to the computer stations. "I love looking things up online," said Andrea. "Me too," said Emily. "Ooh, did you know that 4 of our presidents were born in February?" asked Andrea. "Washington, Lincoln, Reagan, and William Henry Harrison." Andrea thinks she is so smart because she's a member of PAC. That stands for the Principal Advisory Committee, a group of nerds who get to boss around the principal. Looking up stuff about the presidents was boring. I decided to make an airplane out of the sheet of paper Mrs. Ronald Reagan gave us. I let it fly, and it almost hit Andrea in the back of her head. "Arlo!" Andrea yelled. She calls me by my real name because she knows I don't like it. If you were smart, instead of making paper airplanes, you would be looking to see who was the first president to fly in a plane. "They're never going to ask a dumb question like that," I replied. "Maybe not," Andrea said, "but you never know when it might come in handy. That's why I'm going to get into Harvard someday. The more I read, the more I know, and the more I know, the smarter I am. And the smarter I am, the more likely I'll go to Harvard and get a good job and be successful in life." Ugh, why can't a truck full of Harvards fall on Andrea's head? "You probably don't know anything about the presidents, Arlo," Andrea told me. "Oh, yeah," I said. "It just so happens that I know lots of stuff about the presidents. I know stuff that nobody else knows." "Like what?" scoffed Andrea. "The first flush toilet in the White House was installed in 1853 by Millard Fillmore," I told her. "I guess before that, the presidents just went in a hole in the ground." "How do you know that?" everybody asked. "I also know that George H.W. Bush was the only president to ever throw up on somebody," I said. "How do you know that?" everybody asked. "I just happen to know a lot of stuff about toilets and puking, okay?" I told them. "It's my jam." We stayed at the library looking up stuff for 1,100,000 hours until our parents came to pick us up. What a snooze fest! Andrea is sure to win the trip to Disneyland. Her parents hire private tutors to teach her everything. If they had tutors that would teach you how to clip your toenails, Andrea's parents would hire them. So Andrea would get better at it. But I don't think clipping your toenails will get you into Harvard. And that, my friends, is the end of chapter 3. We'll pick it up there again tomorrow.